Hey witches, welcome back on my channel. I know it's been ages, but I'm back. I'm back. Thank you so much for sticking around, for those who did, and welcome to our new subscribers. I may not be posting every single week like I used to. We're gonna do what we can. Today we're gonna talk about shadow work, also called shadow healing. It's a technique that's widely used in spiritual approaches right now, but it's also used in therapy. Shadow healing was invented by Carl Jung, who was a Swiss psychologist in the early 1900s. He's known for contributing to a lot about the subconscious in psychology, and also for his collaborations with Sigmund Freud. They were both deep into the unconscious. So yeah, shadow healing comes from Carl Jung. So today we're gonna talk about what it is and how to do it. But just before we dive into it, if you like this type of content, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a like. It helps so much. So much, you have no idea. That way I can post more videos like this, and yeah. You can also click that little notification bell. And now, without further ado, let's talk about what actually is the shadow. So the shadow is a little bit like the opposite of the ego. The ego is in the conscious and the shadow lives in the subconscious. It's every emotion or every event that's ever been repressed and rejected that kind of is the core of the shadow. It's any trauma, even if you don't know that you have any kind of trauma, anything that comes with usually negative emotions, that's like shame or insecurities, anger, sadness as well, fear, frustration, all of these bad guys that we don't like to feel. We tend to, be like, okay, I'm just gonna put them in a little box and toss it aside and forget about them. We're not gonna think about it ever again. Well, all of that is the shadow. It's still there. It's not because it's in a little box that it isn't. So it's all the things that we don't like to acknowledge. We don't want to know that they exist, but they still do. And they often end up having us reacting or acting in a certain way in some situations or towards some people. It's the stuff that triggers us sometimes and we don't even know why. We're like, why did I react that way? It's the shadow. The shadow that's like, hi, I'm still here and I'm gonna mess up your life. According to Carl Jung, it has several layers of all those emotions that I mentioned. When you start doing shadow work, you're always only scratching the surface, and then you scratch deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's like an onion, with different layers. The more you peel it, the more it smells bad. I guess before diving into shadow work and shadow healing, you ought to know that it's not an easy process. It's something that takes time as well. But yeah, you often have to dig deep, but in the end it's for good. It's gonna do some good, because the more you ignore the shadow, the more you give it power. Denying that it exists do you more bad than good, and denying that you even have a shadow, like if whatever I'm talking about is just like, yeah, you're thinking, no, I don't think I have any trauma, I feel my emotions, I don't repress them. Well, it's not true. There's always a little something, because that's just how we're built. Society and shit has us living in a pattern that doesn't allow the shadow to really speak. I'm gonna explain a bit more about it, but there's this quote from Carl Jung that says, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and the denser it is. So if you think you don't have one, it's actually pretty dark, probably. So now, how to do shadow work? Well, the first step would be to acknowledge that it exists. First of all, it's raising it into awareness. It's kind of like going on a date with it. It's like encountering the shadow for the first time and acknowledging the ugly as much as possible without judgment. So there are several ways of shining a light into the shadow in a way. The first one would be to meditate. It can be just a regular sitting meditation. There are several sounds on YouTube as well that you can just be like frequency for shadow work or stuff like that. It'll give you that deep vibe for a meditation on that, and maybe you'll have some answers if you meditate a lot and you tend to see things during your meditations. Or you could also have sort of more of the conscious meditation, if that makes sense, where you'll sit with your eyes closed but then ask yourself questions. Oh, what does the shadow want to tell me? Why did I react that way when this and that happened? So it can either be that by just meditating, or some people like to journal about it, so it's sort of a mix of both. You can sort of meditate or just sit and think, but not too much, not think too much, and then journal, so ask questions basically, and then when you write them down, then sometimes it's easier to keep track on the process you do, and also you can come back to it. Recently I watched Grace and Frankie on Netflix as well, and Frankie had sort of a technique that I think could work for some people as well, which is where she just sit in front of her phone and then have a conversation with herself. It was her way of doing therapy in a way, if you're more of a talk kind of person. At some point Grace ends up doing it, and like she answers some of her questions that she was like, whoa, okay, well, I had some wisdom I didn't know I had, type of thing. So anyway, that can also be a way of doing it, of encountering the shadow and just like acknowledging that it's there. Now in terms of questions, you must be like, what am I supposed to ask? Can be pretty much anything, but you know, when going through this process, you can also pay attention every day about your reaction to certain people, certain situations. Try to see if you have like specific emotions, mainly negative, or like weird reactions. A good example that I'm thinking of is sometimes like you meet someone and like your friend is gonna be like, oh, meet my friend, everyone loves them, and you hate them. They look so confident and stuff, and if you're not confident because of the shadow and such, like you might like react in a kind of confrontational way, or just like this kind of annoyance that this person's annoying, or they're so mean, they're so this and that, you know, this type of reaction. So a good way to do it is just notice when you have these types of reactions towards someone, either towards a situation, some kind of awkwardness, or stress towards a situation. Sometimes we're stressed and we don't know why we're stressed. These are the types of questions you can ask. And it's surprising just how sometimes easy it can flow, just to sit there and be like, why did I react that way? And then just wait for the first answer to come. Don't overthink it. An answer will pop. An answer will pop in some kind of way. So that's the first thing to do, sort of be conscious every day of like the way you react, and then try to dig deeper through the layers of like, why was that? And try to notice also where in your body did you feel a certain way, and like eventually you might see a recurring pattern, because that's what the shadow does. It creates patterns, triggers and such. Of course it takes time, and it might not be easy for everyone to do on their own with the methods that I mentioned. There are also other methods, but these are just some that I found for this first part of the shadow work. But some people also choose to go through therapy to help them, so it can go hand in hand. But yeah, it might take time, and you have to trust that it's a process, and try to do it without judgment or any type of shame towards yourself, because that's just gonna feed more of the shadow. So go in there feeling compassionate and just allow yourself to feel, you know, like we allow ourselves to feel happiness. What the fuck? My laptop just decided to die. Oh, the light as well. It didn't save the sound I was recording beforehand, so I'm sorry about the shit sound. Now hopefully it's not gonna die again. I don't know why it died. Whatever. So as I was saying, allow yourself to feel. So I allow myself to feel pissed and confused. I don't know where I was. Is that what I was saying? We allow ourselves to feel joy, we allow ourselves to feel happy, but whatever else, we're like, no, we don't want that, no. There are several reasons to that, but also we're just taught from a very young age to sort of bottle it up, don't scream, don't do this, stop crying, type of thing. So we learn to think that these emotions are bad. If you needed the validation that you could cry or feel these emotions, I'm giving it to you. Here's your sign. As a song from Hilary Duff that's called Cry says, cry about anything, just cry, let it out, because at some point you're gonna want it to come out, and it's not gonna, and it sucks. So just feel, baby, feel, and cry, hate, cry, freedom. Forget the lyrics. I did mention that we sort of learn this pattern as young children, and so some people do put shadow work with inner child healing together, like they're sort of the same thing. I do think they go hand in hand, but I think they're still kind of distinct, although they do share a lot of similarities. It's the same type of thing where we don't really listen to that side of us. It's just shoved in the back. And of course, as of ignoring the shadow and repressing emotions, then it can eventually lead to mental health issues or physical illness as well. So I think it's important to acknowledge the dark and the ugly in order to move on, and then really acknowledge the pretty and the bright. My antonyms game not done right. The second part of shadow healing, going deeper into the layers, would be what they call merging. So it's a step where the ego and the shadow sort of merge together. As I said, the ego is more the conscious and the shadow is the unconscious. So yeah, at some point you bring them together basically. So you raise the shadow to the level of conscious. And it's not so easy to do either, because the ego is basically the sense of self. Its purpose is to help us survive. So it tends to reject the shadow as a survival mean. You know, it's like the ego thinks, oh, bad emotions, danger, let's forget about it. Let's put it in a little box and carry on. Carry on my way. So the ego is like anti-shadow, but in this process, at some point, they have to make peace. But then since the shadow is raised to the level of consciousness, since they sort of become one, and the ego is a sense of self, the challenge there is to keep an awareness of the shadow and not identify with it, because at some point it might become blurry, and it sort of has to, but just don't identify with it. You shouldn't identify with your ego either, in a way. I'm assuming that people watching this know a little bit more about the ego, but if you... I should make that video about the ego. I don't know why I haven't. Do you want me to? Let me know down in the comments. But yeah, without identifying with it, understanding it prevents a spiral down into darkness and the deep abyss of what is in there. So by merging the ego and the shadow together, you sort of accept your shadow, and by accepting it, it creates balance and a feeling of being whole type of thing, because it's not forgotten in the back of your mind. It's there with you, and it sucks, but you know, it's part of you. It's part of your past, it's part of your present. It's gonna be part of your future, and so might as well just roll with it. So some other methods to do that is, again, forget judgment, forget shame, and go into this with compassion for yourself. There is a snap method that you can use where anytime you judge, you get it now, when you judge someone else, it comes from your shadow, probably because of, you know, you get it. Me being very unclear and then saying you get it. I just don't know how to explain it. But you know, when we judge someone, it's not necessarily that we want to judge that person. It's because we have a complexion of our own and we react in like that type of angry, look at that bitch type of thing because of the shadow. Okay, now we get it. So whenever you judge someone or you judge yourself or something that you do, a way that you react, blah blah, you can have like an elastic band or just some kind of bracelet that won't break, you know, the rubber ones. Whenever you notice that you judge, you can sort of snap it just as a reminder to stop doing that and have compassion for yourself and for others. And we're all human. You know, again, sitting with yourself and just, you know, being conscious in the moment and noticing feelings and ask why. You can also walk. You don't have to sit. You can walk, have a walk in the forest or in a park, and, you know, just stay in that frame of mind. Usually the shadow is very often intertwined with limiting beliefs. So working on those as well will help heal the shadow. So limiting beliefs can be, you know, just about anything, that like, oh, I can't do this, or I'm so bad at this, I could never do this, you know, that type of thing. These types of limiting beliefs, or just any limiting beliefs in general, are powered by the shadow. It's this sort of entity that's only fed with fear and anger and sadness and insecurities and stuff. So of course it's gonna be like, I can't do this. This is too much. I'm like, well, you know, this is a shadow. Whoa. I know it can be scary to dive into all this darker stuff. You just have to surrender to what may come. Feel open to what will happen, and for sure it's gonna bring more good than bad in the long run. I'm realizing that this wasn't my best video. So I feel like that wasn't really specific at all. That's pretty much all I had. I know I read there were more sort of steps to shadow work. You can look more into that if you want. It's kind of easy to research. I sort of tried to put everything that came back and a little bit more together to make that video. First step, acknowledge that there is a shadow. Talk with it. Have tea with it, and then it's merging it, sort of grabbing its hand and being like, we're cool together, we're gonna go day to day, hand in hand together. Because when it's listened to, it loses power, you know. This is the opposite of. So listen to the shadow basically in different ways. I mentioned different ways, but there are probably more methods. These are just the more common ones. So meditation, journaling, therapy if needed, going into it without judgment and with compassion, and then just surrender. Surrender. Every word, every thought, every sound. So yeah, that's pretty much all I had, but I feel somehow like it's incomplete. Anyway, let me know if you think that was helpful, if you learned some stuff. Let's have a conversation in the comments if you want to share your stories with your own shadow work, or if you have other techniques that you want to share with the viewers. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I feel rusty. I haven't filmed and sat in front of my camera for so long. I feel like it shows. But anyway, I'm excited to film some more stuff in the future. I have videos planned. I just need to sort of organize them a little bit better. I don't know when I'll see you again. Happy shadow work. Not happy, but have fun, I guess. Do I have anything else to say? Well, subscribe and share this with your friends if ever you have friends that are also into this kind of stuff. Subscribe. Ooh, I also have a Ko-fi account now. I just found out that it existed, and it's sort of a Patreon but not really also. So if you want to support this channel, you can go tip me over there, and you can also book for tarot readings by me. So if you want to check that out, the link is in the description below if you want to check out my page. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you very soon. Goodbye.